Hello and welcome to Scattered Thoughts, where me, Sky, that's who it is, Sky Shinobi, on the mics, on the ones and twos. We're just gonna talk and chat it up. This is my first time doing this. I've had this idea for a little bit now, and this is my first time doing it. Um, and I want to make it a series. I wanted to continue to make this like a very communal thing, but this is going to be an opportunity where you all, the listeners, give me 10 minutes or less. Never, the goal is to like never go beyond 10 minutes because we want to keep these pretty short and just keep these conversational. These are going to be unscripted opportunities where I just get to comment from my perspective on things that are going on in the community. And, I get to share some of my scattered, aka the name of this series I'm calling Scattered Thoughts. I get to share some of the scattered thoughts. So, haha, get it? Scattered, haha, clouds, sky, shinobi, all the things. Anyways, yes, these are going to be totally unscripted. Um, well, 98% unscripted. And I'm taking this time at the beginning of it because we are going to talk about Divinity today. That's the topic of this conversation because it's been in the Destiny zeitgeist for the past, I mean, it's been Destiny's, I guess, for years, but in terms of like public discourse and conversation, it's been especially peaked within the past month, and especially with the TWAB this past Thursday. Um, but yeah, I just want to have the opportunity to have these conversations. They're going to be primarily unscripted again, just because I do get distracted very often. I do have some like bullet points of like things that like topics I want to cover, but like nothing's like scripted because again, I just want this to kind of, I want you all to hear from me directly about my thoughts and just want to have an opportunity where from a Destiny player to a fellow Destiny player, are people who are just returning players, new lights, veteran players. Again, I've been playing since D1 Taken King. I've been in the game for a while. It's been one of my favorite games for years at this point. Um, and yeah, just want to have this opportunity again. If you haven't seen any of my branding, get into it. Look up my link tree at Sky Shinobi everywhere on all platforms. But one of the things that I really want to do with my platform. I love gaming. I love the friends I've met. I love the internet homies, all the different forms of community that I've been able to develop. And one of the things is I want to be able to use my platform to allow people to have experiences that I didn't have. In particular, I had some really toxic, very negative experiences in D1. And for a good portion of D2 as well. And so we'll talk about those in future segments. But today we're just going to talk about Divinity. And again, the point I'm trying to get to before we get into the topic is the fact that I just want these to be conversational. And the point of this, again, for my branding is game, learn, grow. So we want to game together, we want to learn together, and we want to grow. And this is kind of part of that process. So, um, yeah, sit back, relax, put on the headphones, and let's get scattered. So Divinity. So let's talk about this. So the first things first, the status of Divinity. So Divinity is an exotic weapon. Exotic weapons are supposed to be powerful. They're supposed to really lean into the power fantasy, make you feel really strong. And also the value, the reward of these exotics, especially Divinity being a raid exotic, um, just being this like status symbol, right? It's a status symbol that like you fought your way through Garden of Salvation, which is a more mechanic heavy raid. It's not played as much, especially nowadays. In the past several years, I feel like uh, forgive me for the exact date that Garden of Salvation came out, but like it came out, and obviously there was a day one the world's race, and it was a lot of energy around it, but it's like teetered off versus like something like um Volta Glass 2.0 when it came around. Like it came back and then all those things. And the fact that Divinity, for the past 3 years, since it's come from the Guards of Al Sharai, again, you complete Guard of Salvation, you do the quest line, and you do that. You have to like put in the time and energy. You have to find an LFG who's actually going to do a Divinity run in Guard of Salvation, and you get it. It's a very powerful tool. It gives you the crit bubble in all these pieces, and it's a really versatile tool in the Destiny tool belt to be able to engage in boss damage. That said, there's been a lot of conversation over many years at this point, if we're being honest, but then really culminating in the past month where people have really been asking. Again, people who self-identify and also just from their stats, you can tell are people who are high skill outliers for the most part. Not everyone, obviously. We don't want to generalize, but the point being that there's a lot of high skill players and then also like content creators who are like teasing out the fact that Divinity has been so strong for so long. You can go into like a dungeon, you go into a raid encounter, and automatically, instead of having to hit the special crit box on the boss, because the crit box is a little bit different for each encounter, for each boss, for each uh, raid or dungeon. The fact is, like, you can just shoot the divinity. Divinity gives a great big bubble, and everyone can do their damage. And then it's also a 30% debuff. Um, so again, there's pros and cons. There's a lot of different conversations about accessibility and all those different pieces, and I'm not going to go into that. But it's the reality that like the divinity bubble was this big thing, and the debuff it gave, and all these things. Again, according to light.gg, only 42%, which 42% still feels like a lot, but 42% of light.gg guardians have actually attained divinity. I was trying to look up the stat of who has it overall, not just who uses the light.gg stat, but some of the Destiny websites aren't working for me today. But again, from my memory or just anecdotally, it's not actually a large amount of people who actually have divinity. So people having divinity. Divinity is this great tool to be used, but it is powerful. And then last week's TWAB, or not even last week's TWAB, LOL, a couple days ago, the TWAB said that it's going from a 30% debuff to a 15% debuff, and the streets went wild. Again, this is on top of the fact that a month ago, one of the world's first raiders, who's part of the world's first winning rating team, had drawn attention. He had offered some solutions. Some of the solutions I didn't fully agree with because they did seem a little bit more isolating than I would have preferred. Excuse me, but the fact that like the divinity, bringing up the conversation of divinity being nerfed, there's a lot of conversation, there's a lot of cyberbullying, attack, and a hate his way. And again, we never condone that. Again, if we're gonna have conversation, let's have conversation. But you know, the Twitter streets were on fire, and the fact that like that leads up, and then we come to this week where it's a TWAB, and now it's like, okay, after so much silence from Bungie about a divinity nerf, then there's this conversation from a very well-known content creator and streamer who has a lot of high accolades in the community saying nerf divinity. And then a month later, Bungie then comes back and says, oh, let's nerf divinity. And I think one of the things that gets lost in conversation is people are like, oh, they're blaming this content creator, all these different things. It's like, two things I want to tease out. One, the nerf is actually not as bad as it could have been. The nerf that a lot of content creators were calling for would have literally killed Divinity. Like it just would have been another anarchy or like another exotic weapon that used to be so powerful, but once it got nerfed, it's like there's no point in using it. Divinity is still going to be useful. Again, I have arguments on a lot of different sides of where this can go, but the fact that like divinity is still going to be a powerful tool, um is one thing that like kind of still leaves me hopeful thinking about. Similarly, the Arbalest nerf, right? Arbalest being super strong against anti-barrier champions and was so dominant for so long, but after the nerf, and even I was nervous about the nerf. Follow me on Twitter at Sky Shinobi. I had a mini thread about it way back when. um but then, when the nerf comes into play and then we actually get to play with the nerfed Arbalest in the updated version, it's not so bad, right? So for me, I think a part of the conversation that I feel like is super missing is this like, you can be mad about nerfs and you can be mad about the different things that Bungie does, right? Bungie does some good, Bungie does some things that some of us just don't like. But ultimately, um, a lot of times we really just have to wait to play for things in game, right? I have feelings. I wish it wouldn't have gotten nerfed, or maybe they're just a different nerfed. I think there's also an opportunity. Like for me, a lot of people aren't talking about a possibility of a divinity catalyst. So even with a divinity nerf, you could have a catalyst that the catalyst offers you like you hold down the button and then there's a secondary mode it can go into, and there's like different trade-offs and things that you can go into. But ultimately, we have to play it. It's just a part of playing the game, and being in a space where like we offer the opportunities. Um, so yeah, those are my scattered thoughts. I'd love to hear yours. Let me know.